a lot of people think that it is impossible for you to win this election, that you are a spoiler. What are your best kill shots for Trump and Biden?
You mean, how do I win?
Yeah, at a policy level, what do you have to convince the American people of to open their eyes and see that should just, we're done. There it is. Vote for me.
Well, what I need to convince people of is that I can win. Because if I can win, if they think I can win, then I will win. Because all of the polls show that they want to vote for me. But they're not voting for me out of fear, because they think if they vote for me, Biden's going to get elected and the Republic's going to be over, or Trump's going to get elected. But if in terms of favorability, I beat both of them in every poll. In terms of the people, the number of Americans who want to vote for me, and
so if they all like you so much, what is it that they don't believe? That you can't get enough people?
They don't believe that I can get enough votes to win. So
based on what polls? So they're seeing a poll that says...
Well, no, if you look at a regular poll that's a three-way race between me, Biden, and Trump, I'm going to get around 15 or 16%. The high one's 27%, the low one's 10%. And one thing that I only need to get to 34% to win. It's a three-way race. But people think, oh, he can't get there, so therefore voting for him is throwing away my vote. So I have to vote for Trump or Biden to keep the other guy in. And they're voting out of fear, whereas I need them to vote out of hope. Now, here's kind of the good news, is that in a head-to-head race, and this is every poll that's been done on this issue, but the biggest poll is the Zogby poll, which is the most accurate poll that's been done this entire race, because it's 26,000 people. It's 10 times the typical poll. Usual polls by Quinnipiac, Gallup, Harvard-Harris, New York Times, Siena, are usually about 1,000 to 2,200 people. Zogby did a poll, 50 states, 26,000, so more than 10 times the typical poll, and it has a margin of error of almost zero. And what they asked a question that is rarely asked, in a head-to-head race, me against Biden, who wins? Well, I win in a landslide. I win 39 states, he wins 11.
Wow.
In a head-to-head race, me against Trump, who wins? I win, but much narrower, only by about 3 or 4 electoral votes, but I still win. Biden can't win no matter whether I'm in the race or not. If I stay in the race, Biden loses. If I get out of the race, he loses worse. He loses 2 extra states, Maine and Virginia. So, Biden is the spoiler, because the definition of the spoiler is somebody who cannot win and is disrupting the expectations of somebody who can. Well, I can win, he can't. So I'm not a spoiler, he's the spoiler.
Well, so it's interesting. From the time that you came on my radar until now, my sense of the playing field has changed pretty dramatically. So talk to me about, there's 2 wild cards on the table as far as I'm concerned. What happens with Trump's conviction? Do swing voters say, no, I can't do it? Or does that actually help him? And then Biden is, from a cognitive decline standpoint, is just getting memed so hard. There's no universe in which that isn't having an impact. And of course, everybody's starting to prognosticate that they're going to pull a switcheroo and swap him out with somebody.
Yeah.
If you can comment on those 2 things, I'd love to hear it.
My feeling, and I had this feeling prior to Trump's conviction, that if he gets convicted, it's going to help him. And, he was behind DeSantis very early on. And as soon as they filed the lawsuits against him, he was 15 points behind DeSantis. As soon as they filed the lawsuits, he pulled ahead. The Democrats are stupid. The DNC is a very stupid group of people, and they make very, very big strategic blunders. And one of their strategic blunders was to bet all of their chips on President Biden and not just have a primary where they chose the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. Instead it shows a candidate who has all of these very, very clear cognitive deficits. And, Americans, you look at President Biden, I worry. Every time I see him on TV, I think all of us, it's like watching your 5-year-old play on a jungle gym for the first time. You're like, oh my God, I hope, he doesn't fall or something. But the bad part of it is, if you look at this man, and we're right closer now to nuclear exchange than at any time since 1962. And the Russians today fired, I think, 2 or 3 missiles off the shore of Cuba, and they're talking about nuclear war. And the Russians have 2,500 more weapons than we do. They have better defensive weapons than we do. The latest Pentagon report showed that if in a nuclear exchange, that we would lose 90 million Americans within the first 24 hours and 90 million over 6 months after a nuclear exchange. So it's just, and you don't have anybody in the White House who seems to be thinking this through. It's like it's Tony Blinken, who was on stage in Kiev the other night playing a guitar at a concert while 500,000 kids are dying, down the street. And he's in a rock concert. In the end, he stands up like the hero and says, "We will never abandon Ukraine." There are no adults in the room. And you say President Biden is the guy who has the football. He has to make the call. They wake him up at 3:00 in the morning. You have 6 minutes to make the call. 6 minutes to decide whether to retaliate, to send the missiles up. And during that 6 minutes, he's being pushed by 6 Secret Service men through a hallway at as fast as he can go, through one of the tunnels below the White House, which I've been in. And they're pushing him to the bunker. So, he has to make a call that's going to affect all of our children, all of humanity. And, don't you want somebody who's on the ball and who's thinking this through and who's, just not cognitively impaired to do that?
Do you think he's such a liability to the DNC that they'll replace him?
I don't know. I don't make those kind of predictions because I have no idea what they're doing now seems irrational and crazy to me. Every step they've made, it seems crazy to me.
Well, I know you hate making these kind of predictions. I'll make one attempt to get you on my team here. So we started with a quote from your very famous uncle, who was trying to explain the importance of being able to think from your opponent's standpoint.
Yeah.
And so, look, when you predict the future, you're going to be wrong. When you live by the crystal ball, you end up eating glass. Like, I totally understand that. You end up eating glass.
Yeah, okay. I like
so, it. Yeah. So that I understand. But and I'll go first so that if we end up looking ridiculous, fair enough. I think Biden has and I'm obviously of a certain generation. I get my information in a certain way. So I just see the memes. The meme energy has shifted. And seeing the mainstream media shift, one of 2 paths is before us. Either they are so cynical that they want him to get reelected, and they want him to get reelected so that he's just a face and that whoever they are controlling everything. Or they're like, ooh, we're now losing the meme battle. Even the people that were with us before are now mocking us. We're going to have to swap out. And that has been going around enough that as long as they swap him out with somebody that is an already known entity, I think then they would have a shot. They'd have a better shot for sure from where I'm sitting. Because I can't, like, the one thing I'll just say, I cannot vote for somebody that has that level of cognitive decline.
Were you going to vote for him if he didn't have that level of cognitive decline?
I would then investigate his policies. Because he has cognitive decline, I ruled him out.
Okay.
So I would have been open to it, yes. So I was, my big hot button thing, there's 2. The thing that comes the closest to my single issue voter is the debt and how we treat that. But both Trump and Biden are reckless with printing money.
Yeah,
Reckless.
they both. Trump in 4 years, he came in and said he was going to balance the budget. And then in 4 years, he ran up $8 trillion. He spent $8 trillion, which is more than every president from George Washington to George W. Bush, 283 years of history. President Biden is now going to beat him if he stays on track. He's running up $1 trillion every 90 days, adding $1 trillion, and neither of them are going to deal with it. You know, it's so selfish and it's so short-sighted and so insane. And yet, you know, President Biden just, he's printing money and, you know, trying to use it to get, you know, to buy the election, essentially, you know, giving these new programs that are wonderful to, you know, forgive all student debt. You know, I think student debt's a crisis. I have a plan for dealing with it, but just forgiving it all is just a way of adding the debt that is going to land on those kids. You know, in our country, it's not patriotism. It's something else.